Question 1. A speculator believes the price of corn will significantly increase in the coming months due to adverse weather conditions. To profit from this expectation, the speculator would most likely take which of the following positions in corn futures? A. Sell call options on corn futures. B. Buy corn futures contracts. C. Sell corn futures contracts. D. Buy put options on corn futures. Answer: B. Buy corn futures contracts. A speculator who anticipates an increase in the price of an underlying commodity, such as corn, would typically buy futures contracts to establish a long position. This strategy allows the speculator to profit if the market price rises, as they could then sell the contracts at a higher price or take delivery and sell the physical commodity. This is an example of taking a directional bet on the market, which is characteristic of speculation. Always remember that buying futures anticipates rising prices, while selling futures anticipates falling prices. Question 2. What term describes the condition where the near-term futures prices are higher than the deferred futures prices for the same commodity? A. Backwardation. B. Contango. C. Inverted market. D. Spot market premium. Answer: B. Contango. Contango describes a market condition where the futures price of a commodity for a distant delivery month is higher than the price for a nearer delivery month. This common market structure often reflects the costs of storage, insurance, and interest, known as the cost of carry, associated with holding the physical commodity over time. For example, if July corn futures are $5 and December corn futures are $5.20, the market is in contango. An easy way to remember this is that contango sounds like can't go lower for future prices because they incorporate carrying costs. Question 3. An individual who manages money for others and trades futures contracts on their behalf, often pooling funds, is typically required to register as which of the following with the NFA? A. Futures Commission Merchant, FCM. B. Introducing Broker, IB. C. Commodity Trading Advisor, CTA. D. Commodity Pool Operator, CPO. Answer: D. Commodity Pool Operator, CPO. A commodity pool operator, CPO, is an individual or organization that solicits or accepts funds from clients for the purpose of trading commodity interests, such as futures and options, in a pooled account. This role involves managing a collective investment vehicle, much like a mutual fund for commodities. For instance, if an entity gathers money from multiple investors to trade a single futures account, they are acting as a CPO. Remember, CPOs are essentially the managers of commodity pools, pooling funds from various investors. Question 4. Which of the following statements best describes the primary purpose of margin in futures trading? A. To ensure that customers have sufficient funds to cover potential losses. B. To act as a down payment for the full purchase price of the commodity. C. To provide a fixed interest rate on borrowed funds for trading. D. To guarantee the delivery of the physical commodity at expiration. Answer: A. To ensure that customers have sufficient funds to cover potential losses. Margin in futures trading, often referred to as a performance bond, serves as a good faith deposit to ensure that market participants can meet their financial obligations arising from adverse price movements. Unlike equity margin, futures margin is not a down payment for a purchase but rather a security deposit that helps guarantee the integrity of the market by covering potential daily losses. For example, if you hold a long futures position and the price drops, your margin account is debited to cover the loss. Think of margin as a financial cushion against daily fluctuations. Question 5. What is the maximum daily price fluctuation allowed for a specific futures contract, set by the exchange? A. Settlement price. B. Price limit. C. Open interest. D. Basis. Answer: B. Price limit. A price limit, or daily price limit, is the maximum permissible price increase or decrease from the previous day's settlement price set by a futures exchange for a given trading day. These limits are designed to curb excessive volatility and allow the market to digest new information without extreme price swings. For instance, if corn futures have a daily limit of 20 cents, the price cannot move more than 20 cents up or down from the prior day's close. Knowing about price limits helps you understand potential trading halts and market behavior. Question 6. A farmer anticipates harvesting a large crop of soybeans in 3 months and is concerned about a potential decline in prices by harvest time. To protect against this risk, the farmer could engage in which hedging strategy? A. Buy soybean futures contracts. B. Sell soybean futures contracts. C. Buy call options on soybean futures. D. Sell put options on soybean futures. Answer: B. Sell soybean futures contracts. A farmer who anticipates selling a physical commodity in the future and fears a price decline would employ a short hedge, which involves selling futures contracts today. By selling futures, the farmer locks in a price for their future crop, offsetting potential losses in the cash market with gains in the futures market if prices fall. For example, if the farmer expects to sell 5,000 bushels of soybeans, they could sell one futures contract for 5,000 bushels to mitigate price risk. This strategy aims to protect the value of an existing or anticipated physical position. Question 7. A clearing member of a futures exchange is responsible for which of the following? A. Providing investment advice to retail customers. B. Executing customer orders on the exchange floor. C. Guaranteeing the performance of futures contracts for its customers. D. Operating a commodity pool. Answer: C. Guaranteeing the performance of futures contracts for its customers. A clearing member of a futures exchange plays a crucial role in the integrity of the market by guaranteeing the financial performance of futures contracts for its customers. This means they are responsible for ensuring that all trades executed by their clients are settled properly, including the collection and disbursement of margin payments. The clearing house, through its clearing members, essentially acts as the buyer to every seller and the seller to every buyer, removing counterparty risk for participants. Understanding this role highlights the robust financial safeguards within the futures market. Question 8. An introducing broker, IB, generally performs which of the following functions in the futures industry? A. Handles customer funds and executes trades. B. Provides investment advice and manages discretionary accounts. C. Solicits and accepts orders from customers but does not accept money or extend credit. D. Operates a trading platform for direct market access. Answer: C. Solicits and accepts orders from customers but does not accept money or extend credit. An introducing broker, IB, is a firm or individual that solicits and accepts customer orders for futures and options, but does not accept money or extend credit to the customer. Instead, an IB must introduce its customers to a futures commission merchant, FCM, that handles the customer's funds and trade execution. For instance, an IB might have a strong sales team that brings in clients, then hands off the back-office operations to a larger FCM. Think of an IB as the front office that brings in business, while the FCM handles the financial and execution aspects. Question 9. What is the fundamental difference between trading a futures contract and trading an option on a futures contract? A. Futures contracts always lead to physical delivery, while options never do. B. Futures contracts represent an obligation, while options represent a right. C. Options contracts have unlimited profit potential, while futures contracts do not. D. Futures contracts are standardized, while options on futures are not. Answer: B. Futures contracts represent an obligation, while options represent a right. The core difference lies in the nature of the commitment. A futures contract obligates both parties, buyer and seller, to fulfill the terms of the contract at expiration, while an option on a futures contract grants the buyer the right, but not the obligation, to buy or sell the underlying futures contract at a specific price. For example, a long futures position means you must take delivery if you hold to expiration, whereas a long call option on a futures contract only gives you the choice to exercise it. This distinction between right and obligation is crucial for understanding risk and reward profiles. Question 10. When a futures market is in backwardation, what is generally true about prices? A. Near-term futures prices are lower than deferred futures prices. B. Near-term futures prices are higher than deferred futures prices. C. All futures prices are at a significant premium to the spot price. D. There is no discernible relationship between near and deferred prices. Answer: B. Near-term futures prices are higher than deferred futures prices. Backwardation describes a market condition where the futures price of a commodity for a nearer delivery month is higher than the price for a more distant delivery month. This situation often occurs due to immediate supply shortages or high demand for the physical commodity in the short term, outweighing storage costs. For example, if current crude oil demand is very high, the May futures might be $80 while the December futures are $78, indicating a backwardated market. Think of backwardation as a signal that the market values the immediate availability of the commodity more than its future availability. Question 11. What is the primary regulatory body overseeing the futures and options markets in the United States? A. Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC. B. Financial Industry Regulatory Authority, FINRA. C. National Futures Association, NFA. D. Commodity Futures Trading Commission, CFTC. Answer: D. Commodity Futures Trading Commission, CFTC. The Commodity Futures Trading Commission, CFTC, is an independent agency of the United States government created in 1974 to regulate the U.S. futures and options markets. Its primary mission is to protect market users and the public from fraud, manipulation, and abusive practices. For instance, the CFTC sets rules for exchanges, registers firms, and investigates misconduct. Understanding that the CFTC is the ultimate authority in futures regulation is vital for anyone operating in this space. Question 12. A long position in a futures contract would profit if the market price of the underlying commodity does which of the following? A. Increases. B. Decreases. C. Remains unchanged. D. Becomes inverted. Answer: A. Increases. A long position in a futures contract means that the trader has bought the contract with the expectation that the price of the underlying commodity will rise. If the price increases, the value of their long contract also increases, allowing them to sell it at a profit or to fulfill their obligation at a favorable price. For example, if you buy a crude oil futures contract at $70 per barrel and the price rises to $72, your long position has gained $2 per barrel. Always remember that a long position benefits from rising prices. Question 13. Which type of order in futures trading is designed to limit losses on a long position by instructing a broker to sell the contract once a specific price is reached or passed? A. Limit order. B. Market order. C. Stop order. D. Take profit order. Answer: C. Stop order. A stop order, specifically a stop-loss order, is an instruction to buy or sell a futures contract once the market price reaches a specified stop price. For a long position, a stop order to sell is placed below the current market price to limit potential losses if the market moves unfavorably. For example, if you are long corn at $5, you might place a stop order to sell at $4.90 to cap your loss at 10 cents per bushel. Stop orders become market orders once the stop price is triggered, making them a key risk management tool. Question 14. What does the term open interest represent in the futures market? A. The total number of futures contracts traded on a given day. B. The number of futures contracts that have been settled and closed. C. the total number of outstanding futures contracts that have not yet been offset or delivered. D. The difference between the highest and lowest prices traded in a session. Answer: C. The total number of outstanding futures contracts that have not yet been offset or delivered. Open interest refers to the total number of futures or options contracts that have been entered into but not yet offset by an opposite transaction or fulfilled through delivery. It represents the total number of open positions in the market. For instance, if one trader buys a contract and another sells it, open interest increases by 1. Open interest is an important indicator of market liquidity and the overall level of participation. Question 15. A customer opens a futures account and deposits funds. This money is typically held by the futures commission merchant, FCM, in an account segregated from the FCM's own operating funds. This segregation is primarily for what purpose? A. To allow the FCM to earn interest on customer deposits. B. To protect customer funds in case the FCM experiences financial difficulties. C. To facilitate quick transfers between different customer accounts. D. To meet the FCM's minimum capital requirements. Answer: B. To protect customer funds in case the FCM experiences financial difficulties. Futures commission merchants, FCMs, are required by regulation to hold customer funds in segregated accounts, entirely separate from the FCM's own proprietary funds. This critical rule is designed to protect customer money, ensuring that in the event of the FCM's insolvency or bankruptcy, customer funds are not treated as assets of the firm and are instead returned to the customers. This safeguard is a cornerstone of customer protection in the futures industry. Always prioritize firms that adhere strictly to segregation rules. Question 16. What is the primary role of the National Futures Association, NFA? A. To operate futures exchanges and clearinghouses. B. To set daily price limits for all futures contracts. C. To act as the self-regulatory organization, SRO, for the U.S. futures industry. D. To enforce minimum capital requirements for all market participants. Answer: C. To act as the self-regulatory organization, SRO, for the U.S. futures industry. The National Futures Association, NFA, is the self-regulatory organization, SRO, for the U.S. derivatives industry, including futures and options on futures. Authorized by the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, CFTC, the NFA develops and enforces rules, performs examinations, and provides arbitration services to protect market integrity and customers. For example, the NFA is responsible for registering most firms and individuals active in the futures markets. Think of the NFA as the industry's watchdog, ensuring fair and ethical practices. Question 17. Which of the following is considered an acceptable method for determining a customer's net worth when opening a futures account? A. Total assets minus total liabilities. B. Total income for the past year. C. Liquid assets only. D. Current assets minus current liabilities. Answer: A. Total assets minus total liabilities. Net worth is universally defined as a person's or entity's total assets minus their total liabilities. When opening a futures account, understanding a customer's net worth is crucial for assessing their financial suitability and risk tolerance. For instance, if an individual has $1 million in assets and $200,000 in liabilities, their net worth is $800,000, which gives a clearer picture of their overall financial standing. This comprehensive measure helps firms ensure customers can handle the risks associated with futures trading. Question 18. A customer initiates an arbitration claim against an FCM. What is the primary purpose of arbitration in the futures industry? A. To provide an avenue for class action lawsuits against FCMs. B. To serve as an informal mediation process with no binding outcome. C. To resolve disputes between customers and futures firms in a binding, less formal setting than court. D. To allow the NFA to impose disciplinary sanctions without a formal hearing. Answer: C. To resolve disputes between customers and futures firms in a binding, less formal setting than court. Arbitration in the futures industry, typically overseen by the NFA, is a dispute resolution process designed to provide a faster, more cost-effective, and less formal alternative to traditional litigation for resolving disputes between customers and futures professionals. The decisions rendered by arbitration panels are generally binding on the parties involved. For example, if a customer alleges misconduct by an FCM, they can elect to pursue arbitration instead of going to court. Arbitration aims to deliver fair and efficient outcomes for all parties. Question 19. What is the characteristic of a discretionary account in futures trading? A. The customer makes all trading decisions, with broker assistance. B. The broker has written authorization to make trading decisions without specific customer approval for each trade. C. The account is limited to only specific types of futures contracts. D. The customer must provide verbal approval for every trade before it is executed. Answer: B. The broker has written authorization to make trading decisions without specific customer approval for each trade. A discretionary account is one where the account holder grants written power of attorney to a broker or commodity trading advisor, CTA, to make trading decisions without obtaining the client's prior approval for each specific trade. This arrangement requires strict supervision by the firm to ensure suitability and proper execution. For instance, a CTA might manage a discretionary account for a client who prefers to delegate trading decisions entirely. Always remember that discretion requires specific written authorization and carries heightened supervisory responsibilities. Question 20. Which term refers to the difference between the current cash price of a commodity and the price of a specific futures contract for that commodity? A. Spread. B. Basis. C. Premium. D. Discount. Answer: B. Basis. Basis is defined as the difference between the current cash, or spot, price of a commodity and the price of a specific futures contract for that same commodity. It is often calculated as cash price, futures price. For example, if the cash price of wheat is $6 per bushel and the July futures contract is 6.10 minus 6.10, the basis is minus 0.10. Basis risk refers to the uncertainty of this difference at the time a hedge is lifted, as the basis can strengthen or weaken. Understanding basis is critical for effective hedging strategies. Question 21. A commodity trading advisor, CTA, primarily provides which of the following services? A. Clears futures trades for others. B. Provides advice on futures and options trading for compensation. C. Manages commodity pools. D. Executes trades on an exchange floor. Answer: B. Provides advice on futures and options trading for compensation. A commodity trading advisor, CTA, is an individual or firm that, for compensation or profit, directly or indirectly advises others as to the advisability of buying or selling any futures contract, option on a futures contract, or swaps. Unlike a CPO, a CTA provides advice rather than pooling funds. For instance, a CTA might publish a newsletter with trading recommendations or manage client accounts on a discretionary basis. Remember, CTAs advise on trading decisions. Question 22. What is the process by which a futures contract's price is adjusted daily to reflect gains and losses, with funds added to or subtracted from a trader's margin account? A. Price discovery. B. Marking to market. C. Spot pricing. D. Settlement pricing. Answer: B. Marking to market. Marking to market is the daily process by which the value of a futures position is adjusted to reflect current market prices, with gains added to a trader's margin account and losses debited. This ensures that profits and losses are recognized daily and that sufficient margin is maintained to cover potential future losses. For example, if you are long a futures contract and the price goes up at the end of the day, your account is credited with the gain. Marking to market minimizes counterparty risk by settling obligations daily. Question 23. An individual who sells a call option on a futures contract assumes which of the following? A. The right to buy the underlying futures contract. B. The obligation to buy the underlying futures contract if exercised. C. The obligation to sell the underlying futures contract if exercised. D. The right to sell the underlying futures contract. Answer: C. The obligation to sell the underlying futures contract if exercised. The seller, or writer, of a call option takes on the obligation to sell the underlying asset, in this case, the futures contract, at the strike price if the option buyer chooses to exercise their right. This position offers limited profit, the premium received, but potentially unlimited risk if the futures price rises significantly above the strike price. For example, if you sell a call on crude oil futures with a strike of $80 and the price goes to $85, you would be obligated to sell the futures at $80. Always remember that selling options creates obligations. Question 24. A customer who purchases an agricultural futures contract with the intention of ultimately receiving the physical commodity is engaging in what type of market activity? A. Speculation. B. Hedging. C. Commercial activity. D. Arbitrage. Answer: C. Commercial activity. When a customer buys an agricultural futures contract with the intent to take delivery of the physical commodity, they are engaging in commercial activity. This is common for businesses that need the physical commodity as an input for their operations, such as a food processor buying corn futures to secure future supply. Unlike speculation or hedging, the primary goal here is to acquire the underlying asset for business use, rather than to profit from price movements or offset price risk. This demonstrates the practical application of futures contracts for end users. Question 25. Which of the following best describes an intermarket spread in futures trading? A. Simultaneously buying and selling different contract months of the same commodity. B. Simultaneously buying and selling two different, but related, commodities. C. Buying a futures contract and selling an option on the same contract. D. Buying a futures contract and taking an opposite position in the cash market. Answer: B. Simultaneously buying and selling two different, but related, commodities. An intermarket spread involves simultaneously taking opposite positions, long one, short the other, in futures contracts for two different, but economically related, commodities. The objective is to profit from a change in the price relationship between the two commodities, rather than from a directional move in either. For example, buying corn futures and selling wheat futures, as both are grains, would be an intermarket spread. This strategy minimizes overall directional risk by focusing on the relative value of related assets.